Next up is Ayden DeBruycker from Teton County.
Hello, my name is Ayden DeBruycker. I am 14 years old and a member of the Eager Eagles 4-H Club from Teton County. Wait, do you hear that on the radio? It's one of my favorite songs. Let's listen. It's transporting us back in time to the year 1942 and into the kitchen of a World War II Women's Army Corps cook. Today, I am paying tribute to my great-grandmother, Dorothy Olive Maynard, who joined the Women's Army Corps on October 19, 1942. She was enlisted as a cook with military rank of aviation cadet and stationed at Fort Leonard Wood in the Missouri Ozarks. She was only enlisted for about 10 months when news arrived that her father was ill and she would need to return home to her family farm near Dutton, Montana. Dorothy was discharged on August 14, 1943. Dorothy also had a brother enlisted in the U.S. military as well during this time. However, because he was a male and needed on the front lines, Dorothy was discharged instead to take care of her family and farm. During the early 1940s, women were making history. In May of 1941, United States Representative Edith Norris Rogers proposed a bill for the creation of the Women's Army Corps. The attack of Pearl Harbor pushed Congress to approve the bill on May 14, 1942. The creation of the Women's Army Corps gave thousands of women the opportunity to serve their country in uniform during World War II. The Army required that women be high school graduates, between 21 and 45 years old, between 5 and 6 feet tall, between 105 and 200 pounds, and be of good health and character. When the Women's Army Corps began, women primarily worked in 4 fields: cooking, clerical, driving, and medical. Women were not allowed to receive overseas pay and were ineligible for government life insurance. If a woman was killed on duty, her parents could not collect the death gratuity that a male soldier's parents would have had the opportunity. In the 78 years since the end of World War II, a lot has changed for women in the U.S. military. Today, women are allowed to be enlisted in any branch, allowed to fight on the front lines, and have the same benefits and opportunities as male soldiers. Because of Dorothy's sacrifice and service to her country, I am a 4th-generation scratch cook. My great-grandmother taught my grandmother taught my mother, and my mother is teaching me. To honor my great-grandmother's legacy and the Women's Army Corps cooks, I will be demonstrating one of the Women's Army Corps cookbook's scratch recipes, delicious molasses cookies. Cookies were always favorable and a very satisfactory dessert. Unlike other desserts, cookies could be made ahead of time and used as needed. Now, I'll roll up my sleeves and give a salute to the Women's Army Corps cooks. The supplies needed are a mixing bowl, number 56 dipper, mess kit spoon, my hands, floured surface, cookie sheet, tin can, and a damp towel. The ingredients needed are sugar, salt, lard, eggs, molasses, water, baking soda, flour, ginger, cinnamon, and cloves. The first step in the cookie making process is to cream together the sugar, salt, and lard in a mixing bowl and cream together until light and fluffy. Today, the sugar with the number 56 dipper. The ingredients listed in the cookbook are measured in pounds and ounces or with a number 56 dipper or mess kit spoon. A number 56 dipper is equivalent to 32 ounces or 4 cups. Today, I am using 2 cups of sugar or 1/2 of a number 56 dipper. Now, I will add the salt and the lard. The pictures in the cookbook show the ingredients being mixed with my best kitchen tools, my hands, thoroughly washed of course. Now, I will make sure that there are no lumps and that the mixture is smooth. The creaming process creates air wanted in the cookies. During World War II, there was rationing of many American products, such as coffee, meat, butter, and sugar. Rationing was considered a common good for the war effort, a way for every American household to contribute to the war at home. In fact, at-home cooks did not have what they needed, but because of rationing, Army cooks had what they needed to feed soldiers. In fact, American housewives were encouraged to save excess fat rendered from cooking meat, not only to save for their own cooking efforts at home, but to then give to their local grocer or butcher, who would then donate to the Army to make explosives. The glycerin in the fat was used to make rapid fire shells and bombs. This gives a whole new meaning to the fat bomb. The World War II era of rationing created many processed foods we still have today, like margarine, Velveeta cheese, Miracle Whip, powdered milk, powdered eggs, powdered potatoes, Spam, processed cereals, preservatives, and artificial sweeteners. Scientists needed a compact and nutritional way to feed soldiers, a way to keep uncooked foods safe to eat and last a long period of time. Processes such as high-pressure cooking, compressing, and freeze-drying were developed. The development of these foods was and still is efficient. However, in 7 decades, these foods have led to many unfavorable health issues, such as heart disease, obesity, and high blood pressure. Now you can see that the sugar, salt, and lard are creamed together, and I have a light, fluffy mixture. Now I will add the eggs. I will add the eggs to the mixture and combine until a smooth, creamy mass is obtained. Eggs are the binding factor to the cookies. They give structure, moisture, and flavor to baked goods. Eggs were also rationed during World War II. A person was allowed 1 fresh egg per week. Isn't that crazy? Living in rural Montana, our family would have been much more fortunate because we would have been able to raise our own chickens, meat, vegetables, and grains. Urban families struggled more with rationing because they had to buy everything they needed. Powdered eggs was a result of this rationing. Now you can see that the eggs are incorporated and I have a smooth, creamy mass. Now I will add the molasses. I will add the molasses to the mixture and combine until a thick, creamy mass is obtained. Since sugar and brown sugar were also rationed during World War II, molasses was used as a substitute sweetener. Molasses is the byproduct of the sugar-making process. Therefore, it was a good form of recycling. If you know anyone who came out of this generation, waste was not an option. Now you can see that the molasses is incorporated and I have a thick, creamy mass. Now I will add the liquid. I will add the baking soda to the water, then add the liquid to the mixture. I am adding the baking soda with a mess kit spoon. As I talked about in step 1, the ingredients in the cookbook are listed listed in pounds and ounces, or with a number 56 dipper or mess kit spoon. A mess kit spoon is equivalent to 1 tablespoon. I found it interesting that the recipe instructed me to combine the baking soda with the water before putting it into the mixture. Baking soda is usually mixed in with the dry ingredients. The reasoning may change the way I bake and follow my own recipes. Baking soda is a leavening agent, meaning when it is mixed with a moisture and an acid ingredient, a chemical reaction occurs producing carbon dioxide bubbles. Carbon dioxide bubbles give the light, fluffy texture wanted in baking. When I mix the baking soda with the water first, it allows the baking soda to disperse evenly with the moisture and the acid. If I only combine the baking soda with the dry ingredients, I only hope that it binds evenly with the moisture and the acid. Today, my moisture is the water and my acid is the molasses. Now you can see that the carbon dioxide bubbles have formed from the chemical reaction of the baking soda and molasses. After I add the liquid, I will add the flour and the spices. I am adding ginger, cinnamon, and cloves. Now, I will whisk or sift the spices into the flour until combined. Sifting the flour creates air in the flour that gives the cookies their light fluffiness. Now, I will combine the flour into the ingredients, and I will combine until a dough-like mass is obtained. Flour is the rising and binding agent to the cookies. If you have too little, your cookies won't rise up in the baking process. If you have too much, you'll have a thick, tasteless cookie. Does anyone know what the word mess means when referring to a mess kit or a mess hall? No? Mess is where military personnel eat, socialize, and sometimes live. Mess comes from the old French word mets, which means portion of food. Does anyone know what was included in a World War II Army mess kit?
The spoon.
No? As you can see, in front of the cookbook, I have an actual World War II Army mess kit that included of a deeper bottom pan that had a lid that doubled as the plate. After you were done using the pan or the plate, you would wash them and the lid would go on top. The handle of the pan would then go on top to make it a complete kit. A set of silverware was also included inside. As you can see, the fork and the knife are there, but the spoon is missing. If you can remember, I used the mess kit spoon for my baking soda. Now you can see that all the ingredients are combined and I have a dough-like mass. Excuse me a minute while I clean up and wash my hands. Now it is time to grease the pan for the cookies. I am using melted lard to lightly grease the pan. The cookbook states that it takes about 15 pans for a batch of cookies to serve 100 men. Think about that. The quantities in this cookbook are measured to serve 100 men. Not feeding any women, definitely a sign of a generation in which women were not viewed as equals. This is what a lightly greased pan looks like. If the pan is greased too heavily, the cookies won't rise up in the baking process. If the pan is not greased sufficiently, the cookies may stick. After I have greased the pan for the cookies, I will place my dough on a floured surface. This can either be canvas or a clean towel. Now, I will place my dough onto the canvas and knead into the flour until it is no longer sticky. Then, I will cut off a piece of dough and roll it into a 1-inch thick rope-like shape. Then, I will cut off walnut-sized pieces of dough and roll them and place them on the cookie sheet. You want to have equal amounts of dough because the smaller the cookies, the faster they will cook, and the bigger the cookies, the longer they will cook. The last and final step is to flatten and bake the cookies. I am using a damp towel in a tin can to flatten the cookies. I will place my tin can in the center of my damp towel and fold the towel around the can. Tin cans were used because they were readily available. You can also use a flat bottom glass. I am using a damp towel around the can so when I flatten the cookies, it does not stick. Now, I will just lightly press down on the cookies so that they are flattened. After I flatten the cookies, I will egg wash them with an egg wash, which is equal parts egg and water. This gives the cookies a more shine or glossy look or a more eye appeal. These are what the cookies look like flattened and egg washed on the cookie sheet. The cookies then will be placed in a moderately hot oven at 400 degrees. It takes about 10 minutes to bake cookies of this size. I have baked some cookies ahead of time to share with you. What do you think? You're good. You're good. As the war is coming to a close, let's ration what we learned today. We learned about how the Women's Army Corps was created and how it gave thousands of women the opportunity to serve their country in uniform during World War II. We learned about food rationing during World War II, how kitchen grease was recycled for bomb making, how unusual yet functional food items such as Spam, powdered milk, powdered eggs, and powdered potatoes came into existence. How brilliant ways for processing food was and still is efficient. I demonstrated how to make delicious molasses cookies as a World War II Women's Army Corps cook, using methods not traditionally used today, but are genius and beneficial to pass on to future cooks. Most of all, we learned that the women of this generation left a lasting legacy, forging a path for future generations of women in the military. Let's give one final salute to the Women's Army Corps cooks. Are there any questions?
What other recipes have you made? Or have you made any others?
The question was, have I made any other recipes? I have not, but I really want to try.
Have you tried baking these without flattening them first?
I haven't, no.
I'm lazy and I don't always do all the steps. I just was curious.
What were some of the resources that you used besides your family knowledge?
The question was, where did I get my resources? So I went down to Washington last summer to visit my aunt that actually had my great-grandmother's cookbook. We did a lot of genealogy while we were down there and found out that she was in the Women's Army Corps. When I got back, it really inspired me to do this presentation. So I dug a little bit more on Ancestry and a few other apps to find out what she actually did. I also used a few other Army websites.
I was gonna ask how this experience has connected you with your family. Are there any other ways that your mom, you said you cook with, and how was that?
The question was, how has this inspired me even more? I think it's inspired me to know that my great-grandmother served, and I'm really honored to do this presentation to honor her.